I was going to say welcome, but maybe it's good day. And welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, independent showcase down under. More on that in a minute. But if you're watching on YouTube, you will have noticed someone that looks familiar, or looks a bit like me with glasses and a bit more stubble. Now, we need to welcome that person first because he is somebody new to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. In that it's his first show, hopefully the first of many shows with us. You may see him on Wrestling with the Bear. You may have seen him on previously on the Turnbuckle Arms, but we're welcoming Michael Jolly to the show. Michael, welcome as co-host. How are you?
Um, Tired, early morning for us, but yeah, excited to do this. Thank you for bringing me on, Adam.
No, thank you for coming on, Michael. It's appreciated. But now, enough of us. Let's talk to our guest now. Those of you in the UK, well, you kind of blew up their YouTube show while we were watching the show last week, which was PWA in a cage. It was my first experience of PWA, not because I hadn't watched before. It was the first opportunity I had of watching it. But we're gonna have one of the voices of PWA on the show, and I mentioned it because the fact that a commentator can call a wrestler a dickhead and a wanker during the program was awesome, and it had me in fits of laughter whilst the action was really good as well. It's the one, the only, Mr. Andrew Jones, Rose. Sorry, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, Adam. Thank you for having me on the show. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the show as well. Please call me Rose. I feel like I'm in trouble when people say Andrew. I feel like I'm in trouble. It's great to be here, man. I think when we did that show the other night, and you immediately got on and did a podcast, a big thing to me in PWA, and I guess we'll get into this when you want to, but we are driven by passion down here in Australia. There's no money, it's passion. And we love this so much that we do these shows. And to see someone react the way you did and immediately jump online and do a podcast and talk about this show from a relatively new standpoint of not understanding the history, but taking it in from watching the show, that's passion to me, and I loved that. So I immediately contacted you and said thank you for doing it, and here I am on the show, and I'm more than glad to talk about PWA with you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rose. That was really good. Yeah, it was. And I had to apologize. And I did apologize throughout the podcast because not knowing necessarily the history of something. I knew about, obviously, Chevs and Troy. I knew all about that. That was obvious. And again, they've done such a good job of doing that. And that sort of prologue at the start, that big sort of promo that they done at the start of that match. I mean, I said to you, and I've talked to a lot of people since, and that kind of stuff normally is, WWE, AEW normally do that job very, very well, and PWA done it on that level. There was no doubt about it, which was amazing. But yeah, I had to apologize because of not knowing all the names as well. I had to, that was another thing, and I'm not very good at names anyway, which if you listen to my shows and I have to try and pronounce Konosuke Takeshita and people like that, it was difficult. But it was just an incredible show. And I didn't have, not saying I had no interest in doing it, but I had no intention of doing the podcast. But as I always watch a show now, I'm writing notes. And after that first opening contest, the semi-final match, I was like, this is fantastic. I'm going to have to jump on and do a podcast on it from that first match alone, which kind of sets the tone of what was a great evening, Rose, of PWA.
Yeah, thank you, man. I think that's a underlying emotion that we get a lot in PWA because, to put it in perspective, we are on an island on the other side of the world to most mass media. So being Australians, we grow up with a lot of American and UK culture, but really we don't expect anyone to know too much about us outside of our own land. And to start a wrestling company and try and do it on a level where we're live streaming and showing the world what we have has taken a long time and has been a long process. But the one underlying emotion we have at PWA is everyone who comes and sees it live and feels that energy goes, my God, how do I come back and see this? How did I not know this existed in Australia? We're probably the best kept secret in Australian entertainment right now, but we seem to be having a bit of a moment where things are aligning at the moment. The show is rolling. We have great talent on the show telling great stories. We have things like Scott Green being on Australian Survivor, the TV show currently, which has got him a lot of hype. There's all these different things lining up.
Can I just say that I just want to congratulate Scott Green on becoming the this year's Coliseum winner.
Yes,
absolutely fantastic. I mean, you've just said, you've got off of the Australian Survivor. The one thing that you are doing really well with, I mean, I'm new, like Adam says, I'm quite new to the company that you are part of. I think it must have been like the last 4 to 6 months. It's just absolutely blown up on social media. And as you were saying before, none of us, unless you are at a height that you need to be, none of us do it for the money. We do it for the love of the business, the passion. But as you said, it's the way that you've used social media. Being on an island that is, unlike in the UK, you can go from top to bottom. There's numerous promotions up and down the country. You find you're quite alienated where you are, but you do it in such a way that people are willing to come and find you, wanting to come and find you. And if the way to watch you is via social media, on Instagram and YouTube, you are doing it you doing it in such a way that, yes, you may not have the fans in the new fans in the arena and in the around the shows, but you are using social media in a way that amplifies that, so it feels like you have got thousands upon thousands of people watching shows. I mean, like as we said, congratulations to Scott Green. Obviously, we have the master. Every show that you've been putting on with Chevs and Troy has been incredible. You've got some really fantastic talent on your roster. The fact that you were able to see AEW in Australia recently, which let people see Charlie on Ring of Honor, which was fantastic. Again, it gets more eyes sort of see her use social media, self-promotion, and then obviously it's great to see the fact that you've had like Kyle Fletcher and Matt Davis on the shows as well, which is just amplifies what you can do in a situation where you are restricted. As I said, being in Australia, so well played, mate. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, and the distance is a wild thing for a lot of people to kind of wrap their heads around about how far away we really are from everything, and it makes us kind of a unique beast because our comedy is very our own Australian. We're very different we laugh at ourselves a lot, and that shows in our shows. There's also this idea of we're quite close to Japan, which is another huge part of wrestling culture and something that we're quite heavily influenced by. And you wouldn't say America is as much influenced by Japan as we are because of how close we are to them and how much connection we have to them through talent like Robbie Eagles, who's part of our company. So we're taking all these different things and you can kind of see it in the world. I remember growing up as an Australian and there was no Aussies, really. There was that one guy with WWE for a while there with the tall, bald-headed guy.
Nathan Jones.
Nathan Jones.
That's right.
Another
Baldy. Shout out, Mad Max. That was kind of it for us growing up. And I think the idea was like so far away, it wasn't reachable. And then I think it was about 8 years ago with PWA when we started the Black Label shows, which are these shows you're seeing now. And we became decidedly 18 plus and made a conscious decision to get out of, say, what you would call the bingo halls and aim for live music venues. We want to look like a band. We don't want to be just a wrestling company. We want it to feel like a live show. And I think all those combinations, and then you look around the world, and I think it would blow people's minds how much has kind of come through PWA. And it's not just us, all the other wrestling companies as well that are in Australia. Guys like Kyle Fletcher once wrestled for us. Mark Davis was once the PWA champion, as was Bronson Reed once. Grayson Waller was from our company. Will Ospreay was the PWA champion at one point. So, it's an incredible story of us on the other side of the world. And we're so excited that it's now kind of being shared with the rest of the world because of their newfound love of Australians in wrestling.
What do you think?
Just ask? Sorry, go on.
Go on, Mike. No.
Can I just ask, you were saying about the going down the 18 plus route. Did you get much backlash regarding that?
No, I think at the time, admittedly, this is before my time because I've been around for 8 years, and 8 years is when the Black Label show started. So me coming into the company, I can only speak from what I've been told about times before that. But it was very, very different. We're kind of in the old school territory world in Australia. There's a major company in Sydney, a major company in Melbourne, major company in Perth, blah, blah, blah. There's no real big boss around the country. But I think PWA shot to another level when we decided to start live streaming. to start live streaming our shows and give people the opportunity to actually tune in live and be part of it. But was there a backlash? No, I think it was a changing of mindset. And since then, we have done what we would call green label shows, which are all ages shows. We used to do them at a venue called Mounties. So we've given the other option because of how important all ages shows are, and we do a lot of them. Say for rugby league games here in Sydney, we'll set up the ring outside rugby league grounds, like we have a working relationship with the Tigers. So there's definitely opportunities to do it, but you've got to kind of, if you want to be different to everyone else and you want to stand out, I think the best thing we did was go 18 plus, because it was able to let us push it to a whole nother level and get funnier and get a bit racier and get a bit more violent and do all these different things that you can't really do in a family friendly show. So yeah, it opened that up.
Definitely so. I think it works for sure. But you touched on all those names there, Bronson Reed. I mean, obviously, maybe she didn't work for you, but like the Rhea Ripleys, and we can go on and on about the names. Mark Davis, Carl Fletcher. What has changed then in Australia? That all of a sudden we're now seeing a lot more of these guys come through the likes of PWA, Melbourne City Wrestling as well, and go to the bigger companies. What has changed? Is it more opportunities? Is there more wrestling schools now? What's the landscape like in Australia?
So there's major companies in most of the major cities. I would say PWA Sydney, MCW in Melbourne, EPW in Perth, and the majority of them, like PWA and EPW, like us, we have a training school attached to the company. So the Pro Wrestling Academy is the school out of Sydney, and it is literally built on the shoulders of those that came before us, the great wrestlers that didn't have this time to perform to live streams around the world and stuff like that. People like the great Madison Eagles. I think if you talk about Australian wrestling, it's impossible to not mention Madison Eagles, because I think every great wrestler that has come through the system and made it internationally, her hands are on that talent in some way. She has taught them something about wrestling. And of course, Robbie Eagles, who's a huge part of it. People like Mick Moretti, Damien Slater over in Perth is doing great things. AJ Istria in Adelaide with Wrestle Rampage. There are great teachers in this country. And I think the issue back in the day was just there was no access of communication. So internationally, I don't think WWE really paid too much attention to Australia. And then suddenly, I think again, breaking that barrier of doing live shows, we want to live stream it. We want to look as good as the companies we're trying to be like. So we want our production to be top level. We want everything that we produce and show. We want to show it like this is our wrestling. This is how Australia does it. And we want to be confident about that. We want to be cocky about it. We want to put it in your face and say, this is Aussie wrestling the way we see it. And I think once you had people like Robbie Eagles signing with New Japan, suddenly people went, wow, okay, you can do that. You can be trained in Australia and become a professional wrestler for New Japan. Is that right? And then, you look back at some of the names in Australia, like, the Iconics, not all of them necessarily were trained by us, but have all wrestled in PWA at some point, from the Dakota Kais to the Iconics to the Duke Hudsons. It spans a very wide array. Zaria, Rhea Ripley, all kind of wrestle. Zaria, last time I saw Zaria, she was wrestling in a Coliseum tournament for a sword. The last thing she did before she left for NXT. So I think the access was suddenly changed. Suddenly a WWE scout could just turn on YouTube and watch Australian wrestling and see the talent that was on the other side of the world. And the next thing you know, the WWE scouts are in the building and they're watching Grayson Waller win a sword at Coliseum, and they're signing him to a contract. Just last month, I looked up to the side of the building and there was Tony Khan sitting there at a PWA show the night before the AEW show in Australia, watching our talent. And then you get to the show the next day and everyone's on Ring of Honor. So I think the word's getting out there for sure. And I think the difference is access. The internet has changed everything and gets everyone immediately in front. So people can see what the dropouts are now, can see what a Scott Green and a Tuckman is and go, oh my God, look at that crowd reaction. The next thing you know, they're in America trying out for WWE.
Yeah. I thought it was brilliant. I was going to touch on that in a minute, but I wanted Mark to talk about it now that the crowd and the music play. So, I mean, they played a great part on this past weekend, this past Friday's show. Was it Mamouche? And fuck you. I thought that was a great, and obviously the dropouts play their music as well. Just talk about the crowd. I mean, again, first time I'd seen it personally, so I can only go by what I saw. The crowd were invested from minute one until that final bell, and even after the bell with the celebration with Jessica Troy. How raucous are the crowd in Australia in general? Because that, for me, that kind of just topped off what was an amazing show with that crowd at ringside.
Yeah, Aussies are nuts. Aussies are crazy in any sport, really. Like, you give us a couple beers and a reason to cheer, and we'll do it all night. It's kind of what we're built for. And I think what's really unique about PWA and what I love about PWA in particular is how they connect with their audiences like that and give them the space to be what they want to be. But we don't tell a crowd to chant "Where's your hair at" Jack Osborne, but they just do it, and it happens. Like, I think because I work in sports presentation in more than just wrestling, and I think it's important that you treat your crowd with respect, but also don't treat them like idiots. Like, let them decide what they think is cool, and then build the show around those kind of things. And I think PWA is really tapped into our audience. We purposely design every show with a different theme, song, design. We want that show to feel really intricately in that time. So whenever you hear that song, you'll think of that show. And it happens with, I think every time I hear Sympathy is a Knife by Charlie XCX now, I will always think of the Charlie Troy cage match because that song kind of made it its theme song. And that is a testament to the incredible production team at PWA. This isn't just something you can just trip and fall on. This is a special moment in time, I think, for Australian wrestling, that we have this many talented people kind of lined up and working together at a PWA show. Our main director, Video Boy Jax, who does all our video production, those videos that you saw, is just an absolute genius. He doesn't even know how smart he is. That's how good he is. And the producer, Ben, the director, Ben, and Aiden, all the sound guys that make that live stream happen. We have an incredible crew of people around Chris and I that allow us to just be idiots on the microphone and be very confident about our show. And it's another big thing. It's the confidence. When I say to the world, this is Aussie wrestling, this is how we do it, I mean it when I'm saying it. And I think that comes across.
It definitely does.
It does. It's, I mean, as you said, you do the shows themselves are just the way that it's being produced, the way that you are on the on commentary, just everything as regarding production is just tip top to what you can do, and it just shows. Yes, WWE. Everyone strives to be this, that, and the other, but you strive and are at the top personally. And this isn't blowing your trumpet, but you are at a level where I don't actually think you can get any bigger unless you go to arenas, just because of the vibe, the way that you're all passionate about the product, the way that you all just work together with each other. No one's out to step on anyone's toes. You just work as almost like a family, and because of it being like that, the product just oozes amazing wrestling and great production. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we consider ourselves in a lot of the time like a punk band. Like, it's kind of the ethos we're going with, is that, like, most people in our own country don't even know we exist, let alone the rest of the world. So big middle finger, turn the volume up, get real loud, and get aggressive until someone notices. And I think that's something we do really well because we're on the other side of the world and we have to have such loud voices to be heard. But it also comes from my background as a sports fan. I think as a commentator particularly, I'm very mindful of who's watching at the time. And I noticed that show the other night, how many people from around the world were watching from all these other places around the world. And I tried to make sure I mentioned every single one, even though it's a million miles an hour in that ring and it's hard to keep up. You got to have those moments to mention people, to say, we see you and we welcome you in, because, we just there's so much working against us being on the other side of the world. I think you just got to aim towards your strengths, and our strength, strangely, is our production and our performances. And I mean, I think so many people come to PWA shows and they can't believe how good the quality of the wrestling is.
Yeah.
Like, This is crazy. This is like on the level of anything you can see anywhere in the world. And you would ask any of the trainers in our academy, and they'd say, "Yep,
Yeah,
yep, we knew that already." Just
Yeah.
incredible trainers.
Yeah, it really is. That blew me away. I need to quickly shout out an Australian wrestler, if I may. You may or may not know him 'cause he doesn't work for PWA. He works in All Star Wrestling, but he did debut at the promotion I work for, Ignite, in February, and that is Jimmy Zero. So if you don't know him, get to know him. He's an exciting talent over in Sydney. Works for All Star Wrestling, and yeah,
Fantastic.
he was a brilliant wrestler for us.
And hey, just quickly, can we do this, right? To anyone watching, because I know there's heaps of Australian wrestling companies.
Yeah.
PWA, we might have the most kind of reach because of our live production and stuff, but there are so many good wrestling companies in this country. And I know they're probably screaming at me now for not mentioning them. So in the comments, write it in the comments that your Australian wrestling company, who's your favorite Aussie wrestler, and engage, because these are guys that have discovered our industry right here. And it's very exciting for me. And I think if you're an Aussie and you want to tell them the wrestling that you love in your area, this is your chance. Jump in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, it's put them in comments. That's how they get noticed. That's how you grow your support. That's how you find new people. So absolutely fine.
Yeah, because we're all in this together on this little island. Aussies, you know, like, even though we're different wrestling companies, a lot of the wrestlers wrestle for each other and stuff because it's, you know, quite that old school territorial thing. Without each other, we're not able to grow individually. So
exactly that. Let's move, because you mentioned, obviously, look, you are one of the great voices of PWA. How does that come up? How did it all come about for you? And also, if someone's looking to become a commentator, what are you kind of like? If you had to give them like 3 or 4 bullet points of what you must do, what would it be?
Wow. So I guess just to give you the origin story of myself, I was a musician growing up, and my co-host Chris Gale, who I talk with, when I was 17, my band signed to his record label. So that's how we met. And I went on tour at a very young age, touring around. Then I became a DJ at 21 and did that as a full-time career for about a decade. After that, I got sick of traveling and wanted to stay in Sydney a lot more. And Chris and I, out of nowhere, got discovered by a guy here in Australia and got put on radio. And we had a radio show on a station called Triple M here in Sydney. And it was a comedy show about Aussie sport and making fun of it and stuff. And one of the days, the great Robbie Eagles was driving home from the Pro Wrestling Academy, and he just happened to have the radio on. And I was doing some joke about rugby league state of origin, and I wish Jonathan Thurston one day would turn heel in the middle of a game and rip his jersey off, and he'd have a Blues jersey underneath. Oh, he's joined our team, and he cut out pass. We score a try, and everyone goes crazy. So I was just trying to inject wrestling into footy at the time, and he heard that. And he tweeted Triple M and said, "Who are these guys on the radio talking about wrestling? Because it just never happens in Australia. We're very like, oh, we're boys and we like footy and everyone's serious in Australia." So I think he was a bit blown away to hear a couple of guys talking about wrestling with such affection. And he tweeted the show, and I was like, hey, you know, that was me. I had no idea what a Robbie Eagles was. I had no idea that PWA even existed. I was the same as everyone else. They were the best kept secret. And then I went and saw a show. And then that show, Will Ospreay beat Robbie Eagles in the main event to win the PWA Heavyweight Championship. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So got out of there and immediately just contacted them and said, how can I help? How can I be involved? What can I do to help? And the obvious next step was, well, why don't you be commentators? And then our first ever show was at Liberty Hall, where our next show is now. That was the first ever one we ever did. I think it was Robbie Eagles versus Bronson Reed in the main event for the PWA Championship. And I think that was the night Bronson won it. So, you know, I had no idea how serious all this stuff I was doing was at the time. You know, I think a couple of years I got to call one of Jushin Thunder Liger's last ever matches. And I just, you know what I mean? It all came at me so fast. I had no idea I was involved in this thing until I look back now 8 years later and realize how iconic that all was. But PWA was growing, and I think I approached it from a different angle as a commentator because I was such a rugby league fan. So when people ask me, like, who are your favorite wrestling, or who's the wrestling commentator you kind of look up to the most, I would actually say it's sports guys, not wrestling guys. For me, when someone is about to win a match, it's like they're scoring a try in the corner. I want to be up. I want to be loud. I'm usually viscerally standing and punching the table or something. So it really is not much. It's not a show. Like, I'm just literally a mirror of what the room is doing. And like you said, the PWA crowds are loud. They're really loud. They're really up for it, and they're all in on the joke. They're all in on it together. No one's trying to ruin it. They all want to be part of it and sing along to Shay's songs and all that stuff, and North Shore wankers and that very Australian thing of just being fine with calling people dickheads all the time because it's a sign of affection in our country. So the big things for me, most important thing is that I've got to not get lost in what I'm saying. So the match has got to be the most important thing. My jokes and my banter come second. So respectfully finding the spots where you can talk a bit of pop culture or talk to the international viewers. But really, if there's a pin, I've got to stop everything I'm saying and call that pin. Because you really kind of are the scoreboard in wrestling. You're keeping the rule set. If someone's pinning in a big match and I'm just like, oh, whatever, he kicked out, that doesn't mean anything anymore. So you've got to be 100% with the match. Oh, that's my biggest advice. Don't get too caught up in jokes and stuff, because I think when we first got there being radio guys, we just thought, I'll just tell a bunch of jokes and it'll be great. And then I realized, no, that's not what wrestling is. No. So that'd be a big one. Finding space to communicate with someone. Chris and I are very lucky because we did radio for so long that we know when each other are talking and when we're not talking, so we don't kind of get in each other's way. That takes time with people. It's not a natural thing you can get. So that takes time. Really mean what you say. I've heard other commentators in other companies talking about, I see this footage of this huge room and all these people, and they're going nuts. And the commentator's just like, well, welcome to here we are. And da-da-da. And you're like, mate, fire up. What are you doing? Like, this show is huge. This is your chance to tell the world what you are. So I'm always right on the edge of losing my mind at all times, because it's just, I need them to feel on the other side of the world what we're feeling in that room. The walls are literally shaking from how much people are doing at the time. So they need to feel that. And the last advice I can give is take a long rest before you do a rumble. People don't give enough respect to commentators during rumbles. Those matches go for like an hour and a half. There's a new person entering every 90 seconds. I'm losing my mind every 90 seconds. From 22 onwards, it's a blur every rumble. So if you think you can do commentary, do a rumble, then come and talk to me, because those things are nightmares, but fun.
Now, in my past life, I did some commentary on a wrestling company based in the UK, and we had a little mini 20-person rumble taking place. That was last minute. No one told us who was coming out, and not everyone had music. So I'm sat away, so I couldn't even ask, and I'm looking down and I'm going, who's that? Yeah, okay, I don't know who that is. Oh, that's just been brought in. So we had to redo everything over the top. Luckily enough, at that time, we weren't putting it onto YouTube at that point. So it was okay. It wasn't live, but it just, as you said, if you don't know what's coming, or as you said, if just knowing what's going on, having a break, especially before the rumble, anything like that. And as you were talking about the gelling, yes, it works. Especially if you've not been together with somebody, it does take a couple of shows, but the passion in there, especially when if you've got a color commentator and then a play-by-play, it works very well. As you said, with you and Chris, it works very good because you've already been there before. Coming into it from a wrestling point of view is a little bit different. But I do agree with you regarding the commentators on, or don't matter what profession it is, whether it be soccer in America, whether it be American football, whether it be, sorry to drop it in, whether it be cricket, anything like that. If somebody just says, oh, we've won, or well done, that type of, there's no emotion in there. You're not engaging with your fans, and they're going to switch off, and ultimately that's not going to work for you. So it's everything you say. I completely agree, and I completely understand the whole having a break before having a rumble, because that is a long one.
Yeah, and passion is huge. I mean, going back to that story of Chris and I and how lucky we are, is that I think the same reason we were out of nowhere with no radio training put on the radio to talk is the same reason why it works in PWA. Chris is there's quite an age gap between us. So Chris is an older, wiser man than me, and I'm a bit younger and more irrational. So when we had a radio show, he was able to talk a lot of common sense, and I was able to get really angry about it, that it made a lot of sense. So there's an interesting juxtaposition between Chris and I. And if you watch as well, it's kind of a little bit reversed, because Chris would normally be, I guess, what you'd call like the face commentator, being the older, wiser guy. But all he does is make excuses for the bad guys. And I'm young and emotional, and all I do is cheer for the good guys. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic between the two of us, where we're playing the roles we normally wouldn't play.
Yeah, I love it. I thought it was great. I mean, it's my first show of many now, but it's. I thought it was marvelous. Right, we're going to
just don't say any of that ever to Chris, please. Right. He doesn't need any more compliments.
Mental note. I actually reached out to Chris to try and get him on. Funnily enough, so
you poor thing. You okay?
Right. Before we start to sort of our final bit, we're going to do some random wrestling questions. So I've got a list of some wrestling questions for you. The first one, that we've talked about theme songs and the crowd getting involved, but wrestling theme songs play a big part of wrestling, right? Sometimes it even makes the character who they are. If you had to choose a Mount Rushmore of, say, 4 wrestling theme songs that are just the ones, who would you pick?
Whoa. Wow. Okay. Interesting. This is more of a modern one. I don't know if people would agree with this, but I would actually choose Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE theme song, right?
Yeah.
I was a DJ, and I actually played that in a club once, in a nightclub, because it's dubstep tempo. So I just put it in between 2 dubstep tracks, and one guy in a room full of 1,000 people ran up to me and just went, "Are you playing Shinsuke Nakamura's theme?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Ah," and then ran away. I just made that guy's night completely. So I also played it in the Sydney Football Stadium once before a huge football game, and that went off as well. So I just got a real soft spot for that song. I know originally he was offered Bobby Roode's song, Glorious, and he turned it down, right? So I'd always loved Shinsuke Nakamura's other themes. Am I allowed to add, am I allowed to add Aussie ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely, well, then you've got to, if we're talking Australian theme songs, you've got to go, the OG sick one is Robbie Eagles. He's in the Afterglow metal track that he comes out to in Australia. I don't know if he does it internationally. I'm not too sure if he does it, but that song is kind of like, whenever I hear that song, I think of this entire journey I've gone on with PWAs, thanks to Robbie Eagles having his radio on in that moment and hearing us and giving us the opportunity. 2 more. Damn. I really like CM Punk's first earlier theme. Hang on, I'm choking.
Yeah. This Fire Burns, I think it was.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think I'm realizing in doing this that I'm more emo than I realized, because I'm naming a lot of screamo songs.
Yeah.
And then I think the last one for me, I'm going to do family-wise, because my family's from Scotland, hence the red hair. That's where it all comes from. I always had a real weird reaction to Rowdy Roddy Piper's theme coming up.
Classic.
Yeah, because I only ever heard bagpipes at like family stuff.
Yeah.
I, as an Australian, it's never done anywhere else. And I look Scottish, but I sound Aussie. I'm a weird, first generation from parents who are immigrants. So I was kind of in this weird spot. But when Rowdy Roddy Piper would come out with the kilt and the music, I was like, oh, it's like I'm at my grandparents' house. This is cool.
Sorry to jump in. You were just on about CM Punk's this Fire Burns. Did you know that Randy Orton used it for one time on a pay-per-view? And that was it.
I think I have seen that, yes.
Interesting. And I remember when it first happened, because obviously social media, Twitter and everything like that wasn't about at the time. And everyone not as into it. Everyone thought it was a glitch, like what they did with the Curtis Axel thing, where they put the wrong Titantron on and stuff like that. But yeah, I always remember hearing it and going, hang on a minute, is this his new song? And then it going back to his old one. And then obviously Punk used it. But yeah, that's a good song. It's a very old retro song.
I miss it. Every time I hear the new one, I kind of go, oh, I wouldn't mind hearing one intro. Like maybe WrestleMania, he comes out to the old theme just once would be really, really cool. And also one that's around right now that I don't think gets enough love, but every time I hear it, I want to run through a wall, is Solo Sikoa's entrance theme.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. And the Tamatonga one with all the drums, like,
Yeah.
I dig those. I feel like I'm about to run on a field and tackle someone. I like it.
That is good. That is good. Right. This is called Table for Free. So, Rose, if you could have three people around a dinner table to talk wrestling and who are the three people you're going to have? It can be past or present, alive or passed away. Who are you going to have?
Damn. God, I was a weird case growing up because I never wanted to be a wrestler.
Mhm.
As a wrestling fan, I never had the dreams of being a wrestler.
Yep.
My favorite growing up was Paul Heyman. I
Yes.
liked this conniving guy that talked a lot because I
Mhm.
felt like that was in my wheelhouse of skills. I couldn't do a shooting star press or any of those things, but I could lie to someone to manipulate them. So I always liked Paul Heyman. So I think it'd be interesting. I think I would like Grayson Waller there. And I know he's part of our company and he came all the way through our system. And historically, him and I did not get along. We had a lot of run-ins, I would say, in the show where I think one show he came out on stage and spit booze right in my face. And the next show he went to do it again and I brought an umbrella. So he missed the second time. So there was an ongoing feud. Grayson doesn't like commentators. It's not unique to WWE. So we had a long sordid history. But I will say this: no one I know has gone overseas and then backed where he came from, like PWA, harder than Grayson Waller. He really spends a lot of his time talking about where he came from in PWA, and he doesn't need to, but he does. He does it for all of us that are back here and wished him well. And I think he would be a perfect person to have at that table. Because of the way he talks about Australian wrestling and the way he's passionate about it. And also, just quickly on Grayson Waller, I'll tell you one little story before I give you my third. When Grayson Waller was signed to WWE, we did our last ever show with him. And him and Steph DeLander at the time, both who came up through PWA, were both leaving for WWE at the time. And after the show, the crowd had left. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but like, after the show,
we'll keep it between us three.
Yeah,
good. Thank you. They'll never know. Grayson Waller pulled all the talent together before he left and said something really interesting to everyone, which was, where I'm going, this doesn't exist. This small community of us against the world wrestling company, where I'm going to a big corporation where there's a lot of people wanting positions, and there's a lot of. He really made this point as he left of like, hold on to what you have here in PWA because it is rare. There are not companies all over the world like you guys who can do the production you do and have the passion and the talent and all that stuff. That meant a lot. And there was a lot of young people in that room, like young Tuckmans and the young Scott Greens when Grayson left, who are listening to those words and are now living those words out. But I just can't give enough respect to how much Grayson Waller has supported PWA since he's become a WWE superstar. So I think I would have him at my table for sure, even though he'd probably spend most of the night flicking food at me with his fork because he's that kind of guy. Third, who would be my third wrestling mind? Oh my goodness. Part of me wants to say Chris Van Vliet because he just seems like a lovely guy. Yeah. And I'd love to talk to him and hang out with him. I'm trying to think of like something cool to say for the third one, though, like some kind of cool wrestling idea.
You said it earlier. What about Roddy Piper?
Yeah, but he'd get too wasted and smash the table and eat half my food and flip it. Like he'd
flip the question.
Yeah, he would. Oh man, the third one is tough. I'd want someone I'd want to like. I just keep thinking of people I'd want to sit down and just chew their ear off about wrestling and ask them a million questions about wrestling instead of like who would be cool.
That's the plan.
You know what? William Regal.
Yes. Funnily enough, he's been one of the most popular ones that I've asked. When I've asked wrestlers, and not even wrestlers, I've asked other people, that's been one of the most popular answers that I've got. William Regal. Paul Heyman's been in there as well quite a few times. We mentioned theme songs. If you could have a band play you out at a wrestling show, what band would you have?
Deftones.
Deftones.
I'm a huge fan of the band Deftones. Nice I think my favorite band of all time was Radiohead. I think it's just an obsession that I've had since I was a child. Like I'm a bit of a collector of Radiohead memorabilia and stuff. But something I can't explain about the band Deftones that just connected me. And to be a fan for this long, and this year, they're probably the most popular they've ever been. They're about to come out to Australia in the middle of the year and do multiple nights in a massive arena. So I'm very happy to see a band I've loved since I was young be more popular now than they ever have been. And they just have this dark dissonance about them. But if I was a wrestler, I'd be the biggest heel of all time. I would be such a prick. I'd just be on the mic. So I'd probably choose something a lot more obnoxious because Deftones are very cool. But it'd be Deftones for sure.
Deftones.
You've just said with Big Eye in a heel, it's very easy to be booed, but it's very hard to be liked. So I completely understand that. I'd do the heel route as well. So
yeah, and also I've got red hair. I'm a ranger, as we say in Australia. So we already have a group in PWA called the Brotherhood of Redheads Against Negative Ginger Abuse, or ranger for short.
Yes,
and they hate that word, and they don't like it being said. And I tell you one thing: when you tell an Australian crowd not to call me a ranger, you're getting an entire Australian crowd calling you a ranger, sir. That's just the way Australians work.
We have that over in the UK.
Yeah.
You, like anything on the British culture, if a wrestler turns around and says, "Stop calling me a dick," don't call me a dickhead, you're going to have 1,000 people call you a dickhead just because that's how it is. I must admit, the Australian crowd and the UK crowd pretty much follow the same type of logic. Whereas when you, like as you were saying, like before, like with American in America, they don't seem to get it as we do. We do it as tongue in cheek. It just doesn't gel, which is why when you see companies like AEW, WWE coming over to the UK, everyone always goes, "It's amazing, it's incredible." Which obviously, when AEW and WWE went over to Australia, the fans were just rabid because one, they haven't seen you for a while, but two, because they get how to be and how to G up a crowd and everything like that. So it's really good. Is that
English fans and Australian fans are the same, that we're kind of in on the idea of like self-deprecating humor works in our cultures. America's they're getting better at it as the years go on, but they still find it quite hard to not take everything extremely literally and down the line, because that's the way Americans like to work. But I would say, I say like even an early influence on PWA and the way we look at it now is Progress Wrestling in England. And like we did a joint show with Progress. Oh man, 8-9 years ago, just when I joined the company, we did it at the casino here, and it was awesome. It was such a great show, but I think it opened our eyes up a little bit to the swagger that Progress had as a company, and I definitely think that was a big inspiration for us moving forward. And like, how do we find our own way or our own presentation like Progress do, and not necessarily try and just be WWE light, but be PWA first? And I think Progress was a big part of that, if I'm being honest.
I think they need to bring that back. Progress PWA at the Electric Ballroom in Camden.
Oh, can you imagine? So good.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be great.
That would be incredible. Right. You did mention sports and presentation, and you're very into your sport. But as a quick slight aside, I've told this story off air and I'll quickly tell it on air. So when my son was growing up, I'd see him of a weekend and he would be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, as all youngsters are. And I would be flicking over the channels, half asleep, trying to find something to watch. I turned on to TNT Sports and there was A-League football. And it was Sydney versus Melbourne City. Now, Melbourne City, I think, are owned by the same group that own Manchester City. I think, if memory serves me right, there is. And I was like, football on at this time in the morning, I'm sold. So I grabbed my coffee, gave my son his breakfast, and I was watching it. And I adopted Sydney FC as my team, with a little bit of love for the Mariners, at the Central Coast Mariners, at the same time as you mentioned the stadium. You come out and you said, when we were talking, I said, well, I do all the voiceover work at
Sydney. Yes, I'm the ground announcer for Sydney FC. So people don't know this. I don't talk about my day job very often, especially in professional wrestling. I keep that separate. But people don't know this, that I work in sports presentation. So we do a ton of different teams around Sydney. But when you hear a goal at the Sydney FC, that's me going, "Go Sydney FC!" That's me doing all that stuff and the big announcement around the stadium. And I do it for the Waratahs in rugby union. I work with the Swans in the AFL. We do both netball teams here in Sydney. We do both Big Bash T20 cricket teams here in Sydney as well. We do all the swimming for Australia. So when, the Olympics are on and the Aussies come out, that's me going in lane one on all that stuff. So, yeah, I get to kind of talk for a living, which is really cool. I never imagined that growing up, that I'd be talking for a living, but people keep forcing me into these talking jobs, and I keep getting them for some reason. But, like you said, finding Sydney FC, my father and I remember the day, it was about 20 years ago, whatever, that the A-League was announced. And before that, it was called the NSL, the National Soccer League. And we used to go to North Sydney Oval to watch the Northern Spirit play to maybe like 300 people. There was no one there. And we, like that whole upbringing of like, well, we just suck at this sport and it just doesn't exist in this country. I guess I'll just turn on the TV to watch actual football players play. And then they announced the A-League, and my dad and I immediately became members because I wanted to be able to, as a sports fan, say to my grandkids one day, you have been a member of this team since their existence. Yeah. Since they started, you have been a Sydney FC fan. And I lived in Waterloo, which is just the suburb next to Sydney Football Stadium. And my father and my mother live quite down south in Sydney, so that I don't get to see him very often. So football was an excuse for me and my dad to hang out, and we'd walk across the fields, the football fields from our house to the football stadium. It's a 10-minute walk across football fields, very romantic, very football. And we'd watch the games. Then we'd spend the whole game yelling at the ref and calling them a dickhead, and they're wrong in every decision they make. Very Australian football, very, very romantic. And then we'd walk back complaining about all the things our defense didn't do correctly, back to the house, which is very football, very romantic. So Sydney FC was a huge part of my upbringing, and it's incredible that 20 years later I'm now the voice of the team and get to announce these huge goals and announce substitutions like number 80 Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, and so names are something
easy for you to say.
yeah, there's a couple of them. I do union as well, so I have to get the Mark Nwangadi Tawase and get all those ones down as well. So it takes some practice, but I'm incredibly honored to be part of, like, I guess, the history of teams like Sydney FC and get to help, I guess, do sports entertainment, which is similar to what PWA is, which is entertaining people with all the different things you have at your disposal to do sport. But I'll tell you one thing about my experience of Sydney FC growing up, and that's the derbies against the Wanderers. When the Sydney plays the Wanderers, things change in this city. And one thing I remember growing up was every time there was a derby at the Sydney Football Stadium, when I would do that walk through the fields with my father to the ground, every bin in the entire suburb was kicked over because the Wanderers fan had just come through and just gone, stuff your place. Like it was just war. And to this day, they have to enter the ground by different entrances because it's just such a derby. It really is an amazing experience, the Sydney derby.
It's quite incredible.
Can I just ask, sorry. So everything that you've been doing regarding the commentating on the other sports, was that through the radio show you did, or was there a different venture that you went through to get to that point?
No, it came from my DJing. I was a DJ, and one of the other guys that I was DJed in a group called Hey Now. And the other guy in it is a quite successful house music DJ now named Hayden James. He travels the world playing music, a good old friend of mine, and he knew someone at the Sydney Kings, the basketball team. And he was like, we need someone to do the music. And I was like, I'll do it. I love basketball. I'll do that. And did it for like a season. And then they came to me at the end of the season. They said, look, you're great, but we don't have any money to pay you next year. And I was like, fine, I'll do it for free. And they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for free. At the time, I was a DJ, so I was making heaps of money playing in clubs late night after the games. So I did the whole season for free, then got scouted by the Bulldogs, the rugby league team, and did a couple of seasons for them, and then met my boss now at the company Downtown Events that I work for, and have stuck with him ever since. And we now do most major teams in Sydney. So I think another good example for people watching this is, how do you get into commentary? How do you get into ground announcing sports? How do you get into these things? Is follow your passions. So I love sport. I love music. And then when someone gives you an opportunity, don't you dare second guess yourself. Don't think, because I could have gone, if Robbie could have said to me, hey, do you want to come and commentate wrestling? And I would have gone, oh, I love wrestling too much. I'm going to stuff that up. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just say no. And I could not have dived headfirst into wrestling, and I wouldn't be where I am now 8 years later. So I think it's really important for everyone. I know there's that thing in your head that says, oh, I might slip and fall and look like an idiot doing this. Trust me, from a redhead that has no soul, it's not going to affect you. The worst you're going to get is a no. So I think diving headfirst into opportunities and just trying it the best. I still, to this day, when a wrestling move happens in a PWA show, second guess myself. I know that's a fisherman suplex, but I'm like, what if I say a fisherman suplex and it's not a fisherman suplex? Is someone backstage going to put me in a cobra clutch and pass me out? So, like, there's always this fear, and I found ways to get around that. Instead of calling the move, I call the impact. Oh, that's done huge damage to their neck, if I'm unsure. So that's my biggest encouragement is just go for it. The least you can get is a no. Like, that's all it is.
Exactly that. And a slight aside, Sydney's next game is Melbourne City this time next week.
Yeah. There you go. Well, we just had the Big Blue against Melbourne victory,
yes.
And that was a big 2-all. So hopefully we're sitting in third, I think. So we're running well into the finals. Looking good.
You won 3-1, didn't you, or something? Was it 3-1?
Say what?
Did you win 3-1? I think it was just past.
We went down 2-0 and then came back to tie it up 2-all. We scored 2 goals.
2-all, sorry.
So, but I think that kind of makes sense. Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory are like the two biggest teams in football in Australia, the most winningest teams. So I think every time we play each other, it's going to be very close.
Yeah, definitely. So, right, last question before we start wrapping up. Look, the highlight of obviously there was a lot of highlights about In the Cage, but it was based around a basically decade friendship turned sour, and it had to end. And funnily enough, the two teamed up this Sunday at Eve. So amazingly enough. But anyway, talk to us through your eyes about the Jessica Troy Charlie Evans feud from watching it at the desk.
Wow. I mean, we're very lucky that we've gotten to call so many great stories and great matches over the 8 years with PWA. But it's crazy that we're this far into this conversation, and I haven't really talked about Jessica or Chevs in any detail because they are incredible talents, incredible talents, and so good at what they do. And I think there was another big moment for PWA in our history, and that is when we decided to go fully into gender. So I think a lot of wrestling companies had their men's titles, women's titles, and we had similar. And then we decided that we're all in this together, and we're just going to have a championship. We're going to have the PWA Heavyweight Championship. We're going to have the Solar PWA Championship. Then we're going to have the tag belts. And I think there's different angles as to why that happened. I think one of them was there wasn't enough women in Australian wrestling to really we just didn't want them to be wrestling the same three people for the rest of time. We wanted to give them opportunities, but also it's a modern day of wrestling where the internet exists. People know how wrestling works now. They train together. They work together. Why does the disbelief suddenly stop at the match? So we thought, as the kind of punk band company we were, that we were going to try to, carve our own path. We're not a publicly traded company like WWE. So we made the championships into gender. And I think what was amazing about that is that when Jessica Troy won the heavyweight championship of Ricky South, everyone was stoked. Everyone said that absolutely makes sense. Great for Jess. And then when Jess lost the title to Chevs after massive betrayal, again, everyone was fine with it. And I think it's one of the biggest selling points of PWA, and I think it's why you see our crowds, and we have a massive female fan base. It's not just all dudes in black shirts. There's a lot of females at our shows because they're also the heroes of our story. And it makes us a very interesting melting pot of a company and of an audience. And everyone is welcome, and we're all in this together. And it doesn't matter your gender once you get in the ring. It's about putting on a show. And we can say stuff like that because we have Jessica Troy and Charlie Evans, right? Like, I don't think we could. And, obviously, again, shout out to the great Madison Eagles who kind of built this whole idea. And I think that feud, when you get a feud where two people trained together, came up together, won their first title together, and are now, in the heights of their careers after coming such a long way, you don't get them very often. So I think you've got to give it the respect and the build and the payoff that it deserves. And I think PWA have done amazing stuff with those two over the last couple of years, them both getting their own title runs and having their own moments in the sun, and then it all coming to head, the betrayal turning into revenge. You saw it all in that promo those 4 key emotions that built that all around. And I just, it was a beautiful story. I'm actually kind of sad that we're done, because I feel like, that Jess and Chevs are like fight forever type people. And I could see it go on forever. But it warmed my heart to see them a couple of days later tagging together over in the UK. And it kind of shows you how sometimes you just got to get in the cage and beat the shit out of your best mate to sort it all out and become friends again. And PWA does that great. And I can't say enough about Jess and Chevs. They're just amazing people. From the first time I met them, they've always been so kind. I remember one of the first times I ever met Charlie Evans. We were trying to figure out how to do a welcome to country at the start of our show. And she didn't have to, but she came over and she helped us sort it out and gave suggestions. And it's the first time I'd ever really talked to her. And just the way she approached a new guy from media, you shouldn't care I'm just a radio guy. Like, you should probably hate me because I'm going to be gone in 6 months and don't actually care. I'm just here for my own stuff. So the fact that she was so nice to me and didn't treat me like that is an extension of everyone in PWA who didn't treat us just like radio guys, but treated us like part of the family. They're just so nice and they work so hard. And Jessica Troy is an incredible coach at the Pro Wrestling Academy. And I'm just proud that I get to call those kind of matches because it writes itself, the history and stuff. All I got to do is talk about everything I've watched over the past 8 years, and you get a great match like that. They're awesome. I love them.
It really, really was. Right. We're now going to wrap up. But as we do, Rose, look, what has PWA got coming up? I know there's a Rumble on the horizon as well. That is coming up, I believe, in May. What's the latest shows they've got? Where can people find them? And where can people stream the PWA? It will go into the description as well on the YouTube.
Well, you've caught me off guard, and I probably should have got this ready. But you're right. May 29th, I know for a fact, is the next show. It's called Dropped Out. It's every now and then we like to give a theme show where we focus on a certain character, and it's undeniable right now the dropouts are just like absolutely turning heads all over the world, and the reaction here in Australia. So that's going to be a dropout theme show. I don't know any matches yet, but there were some results coming out of that show that have got some interesting, talking going on around PWA. I think Man and Manouche are set for a tag title match. I think they're doing such good stuff. So I think that is going to be huge. And then we've got our Rumble coming up middle of the year.
Yes.
And that is King of the Metro, we call it. And the Metro Theatre is one of our most prestigious venues here in Sydney. It's right in the heart of the city, like dead set in the center of the city. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot. And
coming this July, isn't it? Yeah.
July. Yes, back end of July. So in Australia, if you're a band that's made it, you play at the Metro. Mm-hmm. So it was important for us to get there and do shows there, and we have for a couple of years now. And this will be King of the Metro. And like we said, a Rumble is crazy. And you've seen the kind of range of characters we have at PWA. There's something for everyone at PWA. A Rumble is just crazy for us. So those two shows do not miss out. And, I'm going to be engaging in the chat as much as I can, because I love seeing all these new people. This is great for me. Like I said, you apologize for your lack of knowledge of the stuff. You did great. You knew everyone, all the moving parts when you talked about it. You did really good. And, that's the live streams are a party. And I want them to continue that way. And everyone get involved and let's see what we could do with this Aussie wrestling stuff, eh?
Indeed. PWA, I believe, on YouTube. So go follow that.
Yes.
I'll put the link in there as well. That will be hopefully where the shows will be streaming going forward.
Yes, and we have a website as well, prowrestlingaustralia.com.au. Make sure you put the .au on the end. That means Australia.
That does indeed. Michael, obviously, big thanks to you for joining us for the first time. Where can people find you on your social media and everything else?
So on Twitter X, you can find me at Jolly the Bear. I also do social media for the Johners Podcasting Network. So you find my links on that via my Twitter account. On Instagram, I'm at Jolly the Bear, Wrestling with the Bear, and the Johners Podcasting Network. So, as I said, everything, you'll mainly find me all on Twitter/X. All the links will be on there anyway. So, yeah, it'd be good to engage more a little bit with the community, especially the Australian community as well. So,
indeed.
I'm honoured to be part of your first show, Michael. Should we do his performance review now?
Don't.
Michael, come in, take a seat. Thanks for joining us. Now, tell us, Michael, what would you say is your biggest weakness?
Well, seeing as there's a P45 sat in front of me, this.
You got the job.
Well, yay! No, it's been a pleasure to have you as our first guest and on the first show with me. It's been fantastic. And again, as Adam said, it's been lovely to speak to you and also watch PWA, being a new fan, especially in the UK. See how much it is, and I'm going through all the older shows now.
Cool,
to see
awesome.
to catch up. So it's just keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thanks, bro.
Indeed.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you have passed. Well done, Michael. Anyway, I need to just reel off. Apologies, this may take a bit of time, but coming up on the show, former TNA star Jake Christ will be joining me. That's actually a bit later on today. The Vision Orion will be a part of Independent Showcase in America. For those of you ECW fans out there, Sign Guy Dudley will be appearing on the show, which is going to be very, very interesting. From the Australians, I can say North Shore Wankers will be joining at some point. Yes, they will be. They will be. As will Robbie Thorpe be joining me as well. Very, very
Can we
soon.
just quickly shout out how good Robbie Thorpe did at Coliseum?
Absolutely.
Oh my God! He got to the final. Unfortunately, couldn't get the win, but dude, absolutely crushed it in 3 matches to get to the final. What a specimen Robbie Thorpe is. I love that guy.
We were about to lose you with the Wankers, but then we brought you back with the Robbie Thorpe.
Mate, I was about to flip this table when you said North Shore Wrestling's coming on here.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
The Osbournes from North Shore Wrestling. That'll be a bald reunion as well for us.
They're also handsome and talented. I hate them.
Well, that's the bit I lack. So there we go. The handsomeness and the talentness I don't have, but I have the bald bit. And then finally, coming up very, very soon, date to be confirmed, making his fourth appearance on Hitting the Turnbuckle. I can now call him Uncle Eric. That is Uncle Eric Bischoff will be coming back to the show one more time again for us. You can never know if a TNA interview is going to drop. I won't know generally. I get a message to say, can you interview somebody at so-and-so time? So if it does happen, you will know. And then lastly, our Turnbuckle Championship match has been confirmed from Ignite Wrestling Pro on May the 3rd. It's going to be the Turnbuckle champion, Chris Aries, a bit like the Comet. He smiles every 2,000 years. Still hasn't smiled since he won the championship, but he is the Grand Slam champion at Ignite now. And his first attempt, defense of the championship will be against upcoming star Denzel Mack. Tickets are already 65% gone for the show on May the 3rd, so make sure you go to 96 Eventbrite, type in Ignite Wrestling Pro, the end game. The tickets will be there for anyone to come down and have a walk. Meet us if you're really desperate, but come and see some really good British wrestling as well. But check out PWA as well over in Australia.
Yeah. Hey guys, can we lock you in for Coliseum next year? You come down and see a show live or what?
Sure. That would be interesting. I'd love to do it. I'd love to. Fun enough, my uncle lives in New Zealand, which I know is a bit further.
Oh, how nice!
In a place called Tapuki, I believe.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, thank you. But anyway, as of that, from Rose, from Michael, and from me, Adam Cousins, you'll be watching the Hidden Turnbuckle podcast. Follow us, HTT Buckle, everywhere. We'll be back later on with the Raw review and the interview with Jake Christ. But until then, buckle down, Bulldogs.
Go, doggies!
And goodbye.